Hey, how you doing? Justin here. Today we are looking at the harmonic analysis for the jazz standard Misty. So we're just going to be talking about where the chords are coming from, what keys they're in. Gives you a little bit of an idea of some of the scales and arpeggios you might use if you were soloing. And we're also going to have a brief look at a little idea called modal interchange, which we'll probably come back to and revisit in more depth later on. But I thought I'd give you a kind of a little taster of that just in case you're interested. So let's get to a close-up and see if I can't make your brains explode. Okay, let's start off with this Misty tune then and have a little look at what's going on harmonically. So first thing, again, you check the key signature here. You've got 3 flats. That's showing you that it's E flat. Easiest way to do that is just to look at the second to last flat, and whatever note that's on is the key signature, the key rather. So this one's in the key of E flat. So I've written out here the chords in the key of E flat. Now this tune's kind of a famous one for analysing in regards to a thing called modal interchange, which I can explain a little bit later on, but I want to just go through as if it's not harmonic interchange first of all, and just get a little bit of an understanding of what's going on in the most basic kind of way of analysing a song. So first chord, E flat major 7 in the key of E flat. That's going to be a 1 chord there, so nice and simple. Now the next chord that we've got is a B flat minor 7, and that's not in the key. It should be B flat 7 if we're in the key of E flat still. And whenever you've got a key change, a really good idea is to look for dominant 7th chords. And funnily enough, the next chord that we've got is an E flat 7. So the E flat 7 here, this is a 5 chord, because dominant 7th chords are always 5 chords because we only have 1 in the key. Now, the thing that you want to be thinking first of all now is E flat 7 is the 5 chord of what key? And if you said A flat major 7th, you would be correct. So if we're in A flat major 7th, what's the 2 chord? So think upper tone from A flat and you get B flat, chord 2 is a minor chord, so we got B flat minor 7. Blow me down, we've got a B flat minor 7 preceding the 5 chord, which is that lovely thing that you see so often in jazz, the old 2, 5 going to the 1 chord. But it's also worth noting that this A flat major 7 is functioning here as a 4 chord as well. Okay, so it's kind of got 2 roles here. It's the 1 chord, it's part of that 2-5-1, but it's also a 4 chord in the key of E flat major. So now we've got another, if we look at here, we're kind of thinking that we're back in E flat, and we've got this A flat minor 7, and it's like, whoa, hang on, A flat major 7th in the key of E flat, so well, we must be in a different key again. The secret is always look for the dominant 7ths. Well, hey, we've got a dominant 7th right there. So D flat 7 is the 5 chord of what key? If you said G flat, you would be correct. So this is definitely a 5 chord. And if we were in G flat, we want to know what the 2 chord is. We think upper tone, that G flat, that goes to A flat, 2 chords of minor 7th, A flat minor 7, blow me down. We've got another 2-5. Okay, but this time it's not resolving because it should go to G flat major, but it's not. So it's just a static 2-5. It's not changing the key. Well, it's changing key for that little bar, but it's not resolving to its 1 chord. We're going back to E flat major 7 being the 1. Okay. Now, C minor 7. Let's have a look there. Oh, that's a 6 chord. We got 1, 6, F minor. It's a 2 chord. And B flat 7 is the 5 chord. Okay? So this is a really common chord sequence again in jazz. 1, 6, 2, 5. You'll even find a whole lesson on different chord substitutions for that particular sequence because it's so popular. So a few things that you're looking out for there that you want to learn about and apply to other jazz standards. As soon as you've got a chord that's not in the key, start looking for a 5 chord because there's very often a 5 chord around when it's changed key. That'll give you the little indicator as to what key you might be in now, and it'll help you find your 2. Pretty soon you'll start to recognize 2-5s anyway because they're so common in jazz. So you'll end up with this 2-5-1. The 1's functioning as the 4 chord as well. Now we've got this 2-5 which doesn't resolve to the 1 chord, then a 1-6-2-5-1 back in our home key. Now we've got the next little bit, which is another turnaround here. We've got a G minor 7, which it's a 3 chord. And then we've got this C7. Now C minor 7, it should be C minor 7 in this key, and as I said, C7 is always a 5 chord. Okay, now C7 is the 5 chord of what key? And you would hopefully know that it's the 5 chord of the key of F. Okay, and we're going to an F. Now it's going to an F minor, not an F major, but it's still a 5 going to a 1. And this is a classic case of what we call a secondary dominant. So if I just keep analysing for a second, the F minor 7 is a 2 chord, and the B flat 7 is the 5 chord, still in the key of E flat, okay? So the 3 chord and the 1 chord are very, very similar with the notes in them. So you quite often, you might get a E flat major 7, C7, that kind of chord sequence. And if it was a C minor 7, it would be a 1, 6, 2, 5. Okay, so if we look at G minor 7 being a substitute for the E flat major 7, if we imagine that's E flat major 7 for a second, E flat major 7, C minor 7, F minor 7, B flat 7. It's the same 1, 6, 2, 5 that we had here. But C7 is the 5 chord going to F. Okay, and this is the chord that we call a secondary dominant. And again, there's a whole lesson on those on the website that you might want to check out, because secondary dominants are a very, very common chord and a very common idea in these kind of jazz sequences. In fact, sometimes you could have that as being an F7 as well, and have, in fact, that could be a G7. So that could be G7, C7, F7, B flat 7. Yeah, it's not in this case, and some of that was going to, you know, screw with the melody a little bit, which wouldn't sound so nice, particularly that making that a G7. That would sound pretty rough, I imagine. But definitely here you could make that an F7 if you wanted to, and it would be kind of an interesting sound. Again, check out the secondary dominant lesson there. So that's the first time through. Second time's all of the same up to this point. We've got our E flat 6. This is still just a 1 chord. It's a different type of major chord. And then we've got this D flat 9, which is a really interesting harmony. You'd call it a flat 7, 7 would be the kind of term. This is to do with this modal interchange, which I'll get to in a little bit. It's just kind of a variation on a 5 chord, but and then we're going back to the 1 chord. We'll come back and have a chat about that in a little while. So we've got next up a B flat minor 7. Should be B flat major 7. What's going on? We look for the dominant 7th chord. Now you can forget about that flat 9 for now. That's just really part of the melody. E flat 7 is the 5 chord of what key? We already looked at it earlier. It's the 5 chord of A flat. So, oh, look there, we're going to 5, 1. Wonder what the 2 chord is in the key of A flat. Well, blow me down. It's a B flat minor 7. So we've got our classic 2, 5, 1 again in the key of A flat. Very, very easy to read, that one. Now, here we've got this little section here where I kind of always think that the harmony is different. I always think it's A minor 7, D7. In fact, I'm going to just pencil that in a little bigger, and then C minor 7 to F7. That's always the way I've played it. Might not be right, but that's harmonically what I hear going on a lot of times for this tune. So we end up with a 2, 5. Okay, so again, we're looking for the dominant 7th chord, and D7 is the 5 chord in the key of G. So we've got 2, 5 in the key of G. Then we've got 2, 5 again in the key of B flat. Again, let's just lose that flat 9 for now. We don't really need to worry about that. Then we've got a 2, 5 in the key of F, and then a 2, 5 in the key of E flat. So it's a really good example of you know, jazz harmony moving around a little bit. So we've got there, we're in the key of G for that bar, we're in the key of B flat for that bar, we're in the key of F for that bar, and in the key of E flat for that bar. You can see that it's really moving quite a lot, but again, you're probably going to be playing out of the chords for that kind of thing. You could be playing out of scales, but generally you want to be hitting chord tones. Sounds a little bit better to my ear anyway. And then we've got a repeat of the A section, so 1, 2, 5, 1 in the key of A flat, the 2, 5, which doesn't go to the 1, then 1, 6, 2, 5, 1, 6, 2, 5. Okay, so that's the general kind of analysis of the tune Misty. There's this thing called, I wanted to mention, called modal interchange. It's kind of a fairly complex jazz idea, but it just kind of, it's a possible way of explaining how the composer came up with the harmony. It could just be that they played it and it sounded good, which is what I'd imagine is probably the case, really. But it's interesting anyway. If you think of the key of, we're in the key of E flat major, if we think that we're actually, for a second, we're in the key of E flat mixolydian, so making E flat 7 our 1 chord, we end up with a whole completely different bunch of chords, which makes it kind of really interesting. And it can explain a little bit where we get our B flat major 7 from, B flat minor 7, sorry, and E flat 7 for that little section up here where we've got the B flat minor 7 to E flat 7 to A flat major 7, which is involved with it as well. You know, it is a 2-5-1 in the key of A flat, but it's just an interesting, especially if you're a composer, to have this other group of chords that you might like to draw on rather than just being stuck to having those chords in that key. And again, that was looking at it as E flat mixolydian. If you look at it as E flat aeolian, which is the same as G flat major scale, you get this group of chords, which is where you get some of your other harmony, particularly your D flat 9 chord, okay, which is this little fella here, because it's a really interesting harmony, and it gets used a little bit. You know, we've also got the A flat to D7 here as well. So you can think of those things as part of this modal interchange. There's plenty of information online if you care to look it up, but it's not exactly harmonic analysis. What we've been doing is the proper harmonic analysis. This is just a little interesting idea I thought I'd throw in, because it often gets, Misty gets talked about when people talk about modal interchange. So there you go, that is the harmonic analysis for Misty. It's a beautiful, beautiful song, and this kind of analysis stuff is really useful if you're going to get into improvising, because you need to understand the key centers and how the harmony is moving a little bit. It's quite important. Again, I can't emphasize enough the importance of doing this on your own to other tunes. You know, I'm doing these few standards here to kind of give you a bit of a taster, but the more of it you can do on your own and just pick a jazz standard and go through and try and analyze it as best you can. I think that it's such a good exercise to, help you learn the chords in the keys. It'll help you recognize your 2/5s. It'll make you think about the harmony a little bit. It's a really, really good idea, and you'll find the more that you do it, the faster you get it to the point where you can kind of do it on the fly. You know, if I'm learning a new jazz standard, I can see most of the harmonic movements, pretty much straight away as I'm playing them. With the exception of some of the, really, really complex modern jazz things where they're deliberately pushing the boundaries of it, but you want to be starting off with stuff like, your Duke Ellington and those kind of songs is a really good place to start for getting into understanding and doing your own harmonic analysis. So hope you'll join me for plenty more lessons and lots more jazz. I'll see you very soon. Take care of yourselves. Bye bye.